what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day. We're sitting at the ROC, but this might be the last day.
Morning, Pieter. Hi.
Good morning to the good citizens of the Republic of South Africa who have now voted and are awaiting the final results. We are also awaiting the final results with bated breath. My name is Pieter du Toit. I am a hack at News24. With me is Dawie Scholtz, News24's resident maths man.
Yes.
Hello, Dawie.
It's great to be here. Thank you. Good morning.
We rocked up here early this morning to see what was going on. The first thing that I noticed on that board, and we will be speaking about it much later, is the fact that there are 63 hung councils out of 213. That's a massive number.
Yeah.
Dawie, we've never seen something like this before, have we?
Absolutely not. If this happens in any election anywhere in the world. If there's a big swing against the party, that swing often takes place, across the entire country. And then if you stack up all the municipalities in the country, from the least ANC to the most ANC, the swing often pushes them below 50 down to a certain level. And in the past, it sort of pushed the ANC down this much.
Yeah.
The top 20 or 30 were hung. But now there was a big swing, so now it's the top 70 are hung.
Incredible.
How deeper the swing, the deeper we go down that list. And I think that's going to be the future discussions in South Africa now. How deep do we go down
There
the list?
definitely was a very big swing. Dawie, let's get stuck into it. We did have a little caucus in between ourselves before we went on air. And Dawie was here to help us with News24's forecast, which we know the readers loved, which did take the conversation forward. There was some criticism, why don't we wait for the results? But it enabled our readers to get a read on what was happening much earlier than anyone else. Dawie, let's talk about that. Did you enjoy doing these forecasts? It was a first for South African elections.
Yeah.
We had some competition over at the CSIR, which was good fun. Did you enjoy it? And how do you think this contributed to the debate around politics?
No, very much. It was super enjoyable, and it's just been a mathematically enjoyable experience for the last couple of days doing this, because it was actually under the hood quite a quantitatively complex election.
Yeah.
So very, very interesting, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But a lot of fun. And look, I do think it's very valuable to try to understand these trends early on, because then we can, as opposed to just talking about the results in real time, actually talk about some of the deeper trends that are underlying them. And of course, it's just nice to have the view early on, right? Like on Tuesday morning as opposed to say Friday.
And the key, of course, was to make sure that these forecasts are as close to the final numbers as they will be, hopefully. And it seems like they are.
Yes.
And that enables you as a user, a reader, a consumer, a journalist, whatever, to identify the trends earlier, so that you can, when the results are called, you are ready to analyze and understand it much better.
Exactly.
Dawie, did the numbers hold up?
Yes, so largely. So if you go through it systematically, right? So I think I'll start with national, right?
Yes.
So I think, yes, on Tuesday morning, we projected 47% for the ANC. I think our projection very precisely was 47.2, and the DA on 21.8. I won't go through all the parties, and it seems to have settled on 46 point something for the ANC. So we got close, and it sort of just ticked down a little bit. The DA, I think, was very stable throughout. So I think we projected them at 21.8. They got 21.7, 21.6 now in the final numbers. And what's really interesting about the projection is the IFP kept ticking up a little bit. So I think projected 5.3 or something for them. They may hit 6 at the end. So the ANC coming down and the IFP going up was a function of, I think, the model slightly underestimating the IFP, particularly in Northern KZN, as the numbers started coming in. So that's the first one on national. Should I talk to all of them?
Let's just stick to national for a moment.
Yeah.
Action SA, it did very well in Johannesburg. Obviously, on a national level, not as much, because they did not stand everywhere.
Yes.
But they do feature in the national projections.
Exactly, they're the fifth party in the projection. So they're 2.5%, which is actually quite extraordinary, and that was kind of solid from the beginning. So the model put them at 2.5% nationally quite early on, and they've stayed at that level. It's actually extraordinary that they could be more than the Freedom Front Plus, and only contesting 6 municipalities. I think
that shows the dominance that they have. The significant presence rather that they have in the municipalities where they did contest.
Enormous. And look, I mean, it's a long time to 2024, but it is just going to be extremely interesting.
Wonder if they'll be able to cope with the pressure. Dawie, let's just again. Look, it's been 3 long days, so the jokes might not be as sharp as we want them to be. Dawie, the national numbers, it was fascinating for us to be able to publish those stories, to be able to say that the ANC's national support in this election dipped under 50% for the first time, as in 2016 when they got 53% of popular support in a municipal election. It was significant. How does one interpret and use those numbers? Because it is not a general election, so it does not have bearing on national government. So do we use it? Don't we use it? And if we do, how do we interpret and see it?
Look, it's a couple of important points, right? So the one just crucial point for people to understand is that the ANC continues to govern South Africa. This was not a national election. They still have a majority in parliament. Cyril Ramaphosa is still the president. The 2019 election result dictates who controls parliament. So this is purely, adding up the result of each municipality. Okay. So what then is the purpose of this number? It's a symbolic number, right? It doesn't have any bearing on who controls what. But it is important psychologically for the ANC to be below 50% for the first time ever in an election. And I think you ask a very good question. What can we do with this and what can't we do with this? So I think the one thing we must all understand is that this number is built on kind of enormously low turnout, particularly in the places in the country where the ANC does best. Now, I just did the analysis. I think Umlazi, which is a giant township in eThekwini, turnout was 32%.
That's
right. So there's a lot of ANC votes there. It's a big pool of votes that the ANC usually gets a lot from. Turnout was only 32%. In an actual national election, turnout is maybe going to be 50% or 60% or 65% or 55 or 45, whatever, but more than 32. And so we must just understand that the outcome is based on a very low turnout permutation and very favorable turnout, particularly for the DA and the Freedom Front Plus. So if we have a more normal national turnout, I suspect we need to run those numbers. I will still do it in the next day or two. I suspect the ANC would actually be above 50 still. But they're under 50, it's symbolic. And of course, those voters did not vote. Someone needs to activate them to vote.
And the ANC did try to do that.
Exactly. So perhaps we are also looking at a very, very low turnout election in 2024. Who knows, right? So, but the point is, I would not jump to the conclusion that the ANC is necessarily going to lose the 2024 election just yet. There's a ways to go before we can start.
But and we've spoken about this before and earlier off camera. It's you can do polling, you can try and speculate. There are all manner of things that you can do to try and determine or pinpoint what a political party's support looks like. An election is the only one that you can do that. And this is probably the best barometer, this national number, of what the state of the party is.
Exactly. And look, I've always believed that each election is basically a little bit of a temperature check, right?
Yeah.
On our journey towards more competitive electoral democracy, and the ANC's temperature has been going down for the last 4 or 5 elections, right? So in 2011, it came down a little bit. 2014, it came down a bit more. 2016, came down. 2019, a little bit of a bump because of the Ramaphosa effect, but now 2021, it came down a lot.
But it still went down. I mean, it went from 62 to 57.
Precisely.
And the 60 threshold was another significant psychological drop.
Exactly.
And I remember we were sitting here in 2019 thinking, will it settle on 55? That was the thinking.
Yeah.
And then eventually, like you said, it got that bump at the end, which pushed it to 57. But the decline is inexorable, and we've seen that over the last couple of elections.
Exactly. And it's, if you look deeper into the polling of South Africa, right, and you ask voters, which party do you like and, who are you going to vote for? The percentage of people who say, I will definitely vote ANC no matter what, and I will forever vote ANC, that was always an enormous percentage in South Africa, which is why the ANC won enormous majorities, right? So they have a huge loyalist vote. That portion of the pie of people saying, I will always vote ANC no matter what, is coming down all the time. And there's a bigger and bigger slice of the pie, which is saying, I quite like the ANC. I've always voted ANC, but they don't have my vote for sure. I'm going to think about it. And the moment voters reach that threshold where they're willing to say, I'm going to think about it, then a certain portion of them decide either, yes, they're thinking about it and they are still going to vote ANC. They're thinking about it, or they're not, and they're not going to go vote. They're thinking about it and they're going to vote for one of the opposition parties. And that thinking about it slice of the pie is getting bigger and bigger, and that is fundamentally, mathematically, what's driving where we are now, and which is driving the temperature down.
Dawie, I've written down a whole core list of stuff that we need to talk about, but let's segue into something that you've referred to now. And we're speaking about the ANC. You've often spoken about the low turnout numbers, and you refer to a pool of voters that possibly is still available to the ANC in a place like Umlazi.
Yeah.
And you've worked as a political strategist, what does the ANC need to do to now convince those voters in Umlazi to, next time around, we understand you were angry, but next time around, let's go vote for the ANC. What at the Thuli House with the acting Secretary General Jessie Duarte at the top of the table. She's sitting there at that large mahogany table on the 6th floor. She's got some Croxley writing pads in front of her, and we're advising her. What do they need to do?
The problem for the ANC is that the way back for them is an improvement. It's not a political thing. It's not messaging. It's not positioning yourself differently. It's not having better rallies or better ads or whatever.
Yeah.
It is fundamentally an improvement in economic and governance outcomes.
That sounds hard, Dawie.
Exactly. So there is no easy comms, PR, political solution to this. The solution is rolling up your sleeves and delivering really hard. And turning around a lot of complex governance issues in South Africa, right? I mean, just the one classic example is electricity provision in South Africa, whether it is the infrastructure to actually provide electricity to people or fixing Eskom. Those are enormously complex issues that the ANC are being held accountable for. They have to fix that to turn this around. And I just want to answer the question differently as well. So that is the strategic advice to the ANC is you have to get governance right and you have to get it now because 2024 is 3 years from now.
Because tinkering at the margins with PR and rallies and that's not going to work.
That's not what's driving this. But then the flip side is, okay, opposition parties, turnout in Umlazi was only 30%. Why did people not come out then to vote against the ANC, right? If they're so frustrated.
Why did they not transfer their votes to you?
But this is why the opposition is structurally in a better position in this strategic discussion because they're not being held accountable for governance. The opposition does have a PR political rally way forward of improving and growing on this, and that is positioning yourself as the party that can do a couple of things. One, that is big enough to be able to do something real, okay? So, which means you need to be diverse, which means you need to have serious people, which means you need to get a lot of media coverage, you need to do all the political things right. But you also need to have a plan that people can believe in to actually make things better. Because I think the vast majority of people are incredibly frustrated. They have real problems. It's not political nonsense. It's real problems. I want my power. I want my water. I want a job. I want to stop crime, all that stuff. The ANC is being held accountable for not giving it. And they're looking at the other parties and saying, who can give it to me? And if you can have a credible delivery plan on those issues. So for the opposition, it's easier. They just need to be able to put in place a credible plan and a credible plan that speaks to everyone.
And in this case also, there will be a couple of new local governments where they have the opportunity to actually show their wares that they can govern. So when you say they're in a structurally better position, that's also a boon for them.
Yes, exactly. I do think though that with the hung nature of many of these councils, governance is going to be very complex. So it is going to be, it's unsettled in my mind, and I think in many people's minds, whether the governance and economic outcomes at the local government level are actually going to be better under these conditions. We will have to wait and see.
The Umlazi example that you've just used is an interesting one. Umlazi is a massive township north of eThekwini.
Southern part of eThekwini. In eThekwini,
It has been an ANC stronghold for many years. When you've got 32% turnout, that indicates to widespread and large-scale disillusionment with the party.
Absolutely.
And you've got 2 years left. 3 years left to get that right. To get 70% of those eligible voters favorably disposed to you.
Can I just say one more thing? Of the 32 that went to go vote, the ANC used to win 82% in Umlazi. They're down to 57. So it's minus 25. 1 in 4 have abandoned the ANC. So 70% did not go to vote, and the few who did go to vote, you lost a quarter of them, going to the Freedom Front, to the EFF, and to the IFP. And
so it's even worse.
It's disastrous, and that's why they lost eThekwini, right? I think our minds were blown yesterday morning when we called eThekwini, That was that's just enormous surprise.
Because the ANC usually, scored 60% plus
Yeah.
at the drop of a
It's
hat.
an earthquake.
Dawie, do you see any signs or any indication that the ANC, historically, if we look at what happened in the city of Cape Town after the ANC lost the city of Cape Town in 2006, that they have the ability to turn things around, to function as an opposition party, to try and convince voters that they've lost to come back so that we can retake a city?
Yeah. Look, I think that the ANC's experience in Cape Town after 2006 has been nothing short of disastrous, right? So I think they're down to 18% in our projection, and that held up. So, the DA is getting 58, they're getting 18. And the DA lost support. It's not going to the ANC, it's going to other places. So in Cape Town, they've been an awful opposition, and the results speak for themselves. But I do think Cape Town is a special case. They were always weaker in Cape Town. The demographics of Cape Town are more difficult for them. They don't have a deep bench in Cape Town. So I think it's difficult to extrapolate from that and say, well, then therefore there won't be a great opposition in other places. My expectation is that the ANC is not going to be a fantastic opposition in the traditional sense, in that they'll be able to, ask fantastic questions in the councils and do accountability and oversight necessarily very well, because they have no experience of that, and in the few places they do, they haven't done it particularly well. But what they may be quite good at, I think, and we have to wait and see, right, is if these hung councils become governed by opposition coalitions, and quite fractious, quite complex opposition coalitions inheriting very challenging situations and very challenging current governance outcomes, I could see the ANC potentially being quite good at saying, look how awful the governance in this place is 2 to 3 years from now, right? So, because I don't anticipate Johannesburg magically being a tremendously better place 3 years from now. Maybe if there is a coalition, it gets better. Who knows?
Well, clean up the sidewalks, we'd be happy.
So there are some, but you'll have to see if it happens. And I could see the ANC being politically quite intelligent at using these fractious coalition governments that may or may not deliver very well 2 to 3 years from now to attack those coalition governments. That, I think, is the one thing that will be interesting.
But that then indicates a very cynical approach to governance, where it is all about the attainment of power, and then you put the interests of your citizens at the back of the queue, which we've seen over the last couple of years. Dawie, let's talk about the other projections, those that have the big ones, those that have held up very firmly. Tshwane, which contains the city of Pretoria. How did that hold up, given where we are?
So let me do a quick roundup, right?
Yes.
So I think it's very interesting. We'll start from the north. So Tshwane first. I think yesterday, sort of mid-morning, or yesterday afternoon, or Tuesday afternoon, we projected, I think, 34 for the ANC, 34 for the DA, I think it was 11 for the EFF, and 7 for Action SA, and 7 for the Freedom Fund Plus. That's interesting. So the projection got very close, but it actually shifted a little bit. So the ANC seems to be ending on 35, so they bumped up by 1, and the DA seems to be ending on 32. So the projection was out by a point or two for the DA. And the reason why that's the case is because Action SA did a little bit better than we anticipated, so I think we projected them at 7. They're kind of looking like 8, maybe even 8.5 in the final result, which is interesting. EFF as projected
11,
and exactly, and Freedom Fund Plus as projected 8. So that's interesting.
So that will lead to some interesting coalition permutations and negotiations.
It's going to be a real mess. No, that's going to be, and that is a real opportunity for a non-ANC and EFF opposition coalition. If the egos around the table can sort themselves out. I think.
How many egos did you spot down here? These
quite a few.
Joburg.
Yeah. So Joburg, we projected initially 34 for the ANC, 28 for the DA, and 17 for Action SA. Yeah. It kind of landed with everyone minus 1. So that seems to be landing 33, 27, 16, with the Patriotic Alliance getting more than we anticipated. By the way, just as an aside, I mean, congratulations to the Patriotic Alliance. They have just shown an incredible result in the coloured community.
Eldorado Park is now theirs.
Aldos, they got 60 to 70% of the vote. Ennerdale, they won between 50 and 60%. Riverlea, they won most of the votes. In other pockets where there are coloured votes, the DA used to win these places by 60 to 80% of the vote. it's a massive swing. The DA is getting like 10-20% of the vote there, PA dominating, and the model anticipated that, but they've overrun what the model projected initially, which is why the others came down a bit and PA went up a little bit. Yeah. Shall I do Ekurhuleni?
Let's say, what, you neglected to mention, or did you not mention the EFF in Joburg?
I did. They got, let me hold on, I think it's 11 as well,
Okay.
if I remember correctly.
So that's going to be quite fractious as well. I mean, to get beyond 50 for either the ANC
Yeah.
or the DA, that's
Yeah.
going to take some doing
Exactly.
and some lassoing of the smaller parties.
Exactly. You know what? My apologies. Our initial projection held up 34 for the ANC.
Okay.
So I'm looking at the final numbers.
DA
now.
27.
The DA 27. So 1 point down on the projection for DA, 1 point down on the projection
Okay.
for Action SA. Ekurhuleni has held up entirely. So we projected, I think, very early on Tuesday morning, we projected 38% for the ANC, 29% for the DA. That's held up exactly. Action SA, we projected 6. They're going to get 7. So ballpark.
EFF, they'll push the ANC over 50.
They had a really good result in Ekurhuleni. So I think there in Ekurhuleni, the EFF I think got 14.
I think
We
that was
projected
probably their best result in any of the metros.
Yes. Yeah.
Which has been a very flat election for them generally.
Yeah. Exactly. And interestingly, Ekurhuleni is the real test case for ANC plus EFF, right? Because ANC is 38, EFF is 14. That's a very easy one to stitch together if they wanted to, but then they have to govern together, right?
Yeah.
And own the governance together. And I think we were having an internal discussion yesterday evening about, until now the EFF has preferred to not form a coalition, but
Exactly.
to sort of vote by vote decide.
Yeah.
But here now is a classic opportunity for them to say, all right, let's do it. 38 plus 14 is 52. Let's create a formal coalition with the following joint agreements. We will do this. You will get these posts. You will get these posts. This is what we do. And I mean, the talk on the floor, by the way, was that if the ANC and the EFF were to make any agreement like this, it would not only entail elements to local governance, but would also entail elements to what's going to happen in Parliament. Because
Exactly.
we've been hearing noises about the ANC saying, okay, fine, we can govern together and we can make concessions to you in Ekurhuleni, but then the EFF, we get to reopen the land discussion in Parliament, which I'm sure will freak out a lot of some of our more DA and FF Plus voting viewers. But
That's what's going to happen.
that's the discussion we're hearing on the floor.
Local negotiations will have national implications.
With national kind of chips being bargained with.
And what will make Ekurhuleni so important is that Mayor Mzwandile Masile is very close to Julius Malema and the
Yes.
EFF there. So that deal might be hammered out before lunchtime today,
We will see.
But where the EFF ANC coalition, there will be a good test and a fantastic case study for how they can work together. Similarly, Tshwane will be the same, where you can have a governing coalition without the ANC and the EFF.
Exactly.
So those two test tubes will be interesting to see.
It's a bit like North Korea and South Korea, just the other way around.
Yes.
But anyway, shall we go south on the
Yes,
projections?
let's go.
So the next one was Mangaung, right? I think we called that one yesterday afternoon. I mean, that was I'm quite proud about this one because we got him on the decimal. So I think 50.6% was the projection from very early, and about 26 for the DA, and it's really landed on that kind of very precisely. So I think that one held up very, very nicely. Then eThekwini is the very interesting one. So on eThekwini, I think we projected 44 for the ANC yesterday morning, and at 26 for the DA.
44.5 for the
Yes.
ANC, if I
And
recall.
I think that one, I will concede, we were out by a point or two. So the ANC at the end got 42, so much lower than anticipated. And this discussion about the EFF overperforming our expectations, and not the EFF, the IFP, overperforming our expectations, but also overperforming the model's expectations, was definitely true because the IFP kind of kept nudging up, and the ANC kept nudging down in the projections as more numbers came in. So I think the eThekwini numbers, and at the end was quite a strong number for the. Let me just open this up for a moment.
Dawie, but while you're opening up that, the eThekwini result of all the metros was the biggest earthquake, I think.
Massive.
Given the absolute dominance that the ANC historically have enjoyed in the city,
exactly.
every time and very easily getting above 60%, now dropping as far as they have.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's tremendous, and it's because of the Sternot phenomenon we spoke about. It's because they got a complete shellacking in the Indian electorate in eThekwini, which is an important piece. And the Indian electorate that used to get like 30-35% of the vote there, it's a couple of 100,000 people. If you go from 30% to 5%, that hurts, right? That was part of the math. And then of course also just within the black electorate in eThekwini, you know, as I said, huge losses. Umlazi, there were 82, they're 57, right? And it goes to Action, it goes to EFF, it goes to IFP.
Did you pick up any Zuma effect at all? Was it too difficult to ascribe anything to Zuma and all the July violence?
Yeah, so
it must have played a role.
This tells you what the result is and like how people voted. It doesn't tell you why they voted that way. And I think that's a deeper discussion and analysis to be had. And the discussion about Zuma is interesting because, you know, in most other ANC campaigns, you see all the former presidents loudly, vocally endorsing the party. Jacob Zuma didn't ever appear at any ANC event. And I think
there was a tweet.
Yes, there was a tweet and there was a video. Now, a tweet and a video is not the strongest endorsement that I've ever seen.
No.
Look, you may also say
it's not quite flying out Nelson Mandela on a private plane to the Eastern Cape in the rain.
Exactly.
As they did in 2011.
Indeed. But I think the other interesting thing about it as well is just perhaps also, you know, Zuma's brand is so toxic outside of KZN that was also a decision by the ANC. And, you know, so I think there's a lot of questions behind the scenes about this that we just don't know the answers to.
But crisis for the ANC in eThekwini.
Absolutely.
Gqeberha?
Fascinating outcome. We projected 42-40, right? And then a host of small parties kind of slicing up the rest. But 42 for the DA, 40 for the ANC. It seems to have landed like 40.8, 40.7 for the DA, so the DA coming sort of a point, maybe like a little bit of less than a point under that. And the ANC kind of exactly as projected, sort of 39.7, so maybe like a couple of decimals lower than we thought, but kind of pretty much at the level of 40%. So I think that projection has held up really nicely.
Talking about coalitions, it's going to be interesting to see how they're going to manage those coalitions because they've had 5 years which was tempestuous, which was unstable. I wonder if the DA have learned some of the lessons that they were taught over the last 5 years.
Honestly, I think this one is just going to be a mess. I mean,
mess.
It's there's, you know, let's just do some math. So the DA is on 40.4. That's the final number.
Yeah. So they need 10.
They need 10 points.
Yeah.
The ACDP has 2.
42.
PA has 1.
43.
FF has 2.
45.
UDM has 1.
46.
Would good work with them? Let's guess. Let's say Auntie Patty and Helen makes things up, so that takes us to 47.
Okay. It's a long shot.
Then there is this small party, local party, the AIM, the Abantu Integrity Movement.
Yeah.
They have the name integrity or the word integrity in their name, so I'm guessing they've got an anti-corruption platform. So let's guess on the DA side of the fence. So that's 48.
Yeah.
And so, but then there's the big critical question.
Slim pickings, this, Dawie.
No, yeah, exactly. That's 48. And then you've already got like 6 or 7 parties. There's one more party called the Northern Alliance, which is based largely in the sort of coloured northern suburbs of Port Elizabeth, who got 2%. And no one knows anything about the Northern Alliance. I don't know anything about the Northern Alliance. So I don't know whether they're inclined towards the DA or the ANC, but my view is just that the Northern Alliance probably is the key to this whole thing, because that's what gets you to 50. So, and if you do the math the other way around, right?
Yes.
So the ANC is on 40, okay? The EFF is on 6, so that's 46, okay? Maybe they get the Patriotic Alliance, it's 47.
Maybe Bantu Lemisa says, look.
I doubt it, because they're working with the DA now. So Patricia de Lille is working with Cyril Ramaphosa and his national cabinet now. Good, so they could go the other way.
Okay,
that's 48.
Okay.
And what's left? The Northern Alliance. So I really think that the Northern Alliance is the true kingmaker in Nelson Mandela Bay, and no one knows anything about them. So I would advise us to have a conversation with them sometime soon.
We need to get a reporter out to the Northern Alliance as soon as we can.
I think so too, because they're the key to Gqeberha.
But to hold such a fractious coalition together of such varied interests, so many people, so many egos in the room.
There's only one person that's pulled it off before, and that's Helen Zille.
And she spent time in Gqeberha.
I'm sure she will be involved in this discussion, but you know, it's going to be a messy one. It's going to, and I think probably you would have to think quite long and hard as a political party whether you want to, particularly if you're either the ANC or the DA, whether you want to govern in that situation, or whether you want to be in opposition knocking down the very fractious, very complex, messy coalition government.
It's a situation where you have to do a temperature check on the state of the coalition every single day, and ahead of every single council meeting or MACO meeting. Because before you go to sleep at night, just WhatsApp group, everyone okay?
Because if there's one guy or gal in the council, one of the Northern Alliance's councillors that is sick on that day, or that decides, there's a tender that the council is giving out to someone to clean the sidewalks, and they wanted to not go to that company but to that company, the council collapses.
Or the bloody speaker put me down. I don't like the speaker. I'm not going to vote today. I'm just going to go outside for a coffee with an ANC friend.
This is going to be really interesting.
Buffalo City.
Buffalo City, we got right on the dot. So I think that was very clear from the beginning. 60% on the dot for the ANC, 19% for the DA, I think 12% for the EFF. ANC stable, the only metro in the country where they have stable. Some swing away from the DA because they lost votes in the black electorate there and towards the EFF. I think nothing controversial from Buffalo City.
As was Cape Town, nothing controversial. That held up.
Yeah, and I'm quite proud of our Cape Town projection because we did that very, very early on Tuesday morning, so the day after the election. I think we at 6 a.m. after the election. We called it at 58.19. Let me double check it now, but my understanding is it's landed exactly at that point. 58% for the DA, 19% for the ANC. So I think that one was very accurate. Yes, 58.19. We're 80. The last update I did was 80% counted. So I think we're pretty much now at that level, 58.19.
Dawie, before we finish up, I just want to go back up country, back to Gauteng, and to the southwest of Gauteng, the southwestern townships, popularly known as Soweto.
Yes.
Tell us what happened there. Soweto is, and we throw about the ANC's heartland with gay abandon often, the heartland's everywhere. But, I think there's a very strong case to be made out for Soweto being very much part of the ANC's heartbeat. Vilakazi Street, where Nelson Mandela had his home, Desmond Tutu had his home, scene of the 1976 Soweto riots. A large part of the armed struggle was planned by operatives in Soweto. It's been a spiritual home for the party. I mean, Joburg is the home of Luthuli House, the ANC's headquarters. So tell me what happened in Soweto. Tell me what happened, and should the ANC be concerned?
It's just, this is, I was speechless when he started getting these numbers in, but the complete political earthquake, like electoral earthquake, in 2011, the ANC won 87% in Soweto. On Monday, they got 53. So that's minus 34. That's a complete collapse. Turnout used to be mid to high 50s, 60. It's down to 41%, really low. Where did the vote go? To Action SA. Action SA winning 21% of Soweto. That's 1 in 5 voters in Soweto. Soweto's 600,000 registered voters.
It's almost a quarter, I think, of the Joburg electorate.
More than a quarter of the Joburg electorate. The full Joburg electorate is 2.2 million people. Soweto is 600,000. It's like almost 30%. I'm almost speechless. It's unbelievable. This is one of the biggest surprises of the election for me, is Soweto in isolation. And the interesting thing is, the DA in 2019, in 2016 got 9%. They're down to 3%. And in 2011 they got 6%. So they're half of what they got 10 years ago in Soweto. So all of the progress, all of the just tremendous efforts, millions and millions and millions spent on trying to grow the DA support in places like Soweto, and particularly in Soweto,
pretty much come to naught.
Gone. It's done. It's all to Action SA. The EFF, 14%, exactly what they got in 2016. So stable. So ANC collapse, all of it going to Action SA. And I do think it is going to beg some real interesting questions about the DA's path forward, right? Here comes along Herman Mashaba with Action SA, campaigning for 6 months on a dinky budget with no other major national figures, no TV ads, none of that. And it takes 21% out of Soweto, makes more demographic progress than the DA has been able to make in 20 years of trying to achieve this. And the DA back to square zero. And of course the ANC on 53, and just by the way, this number, 53% in Soweto, if that holds in 2024, there's no way the ANC is anywhere even remotely close to 50% in Gauteng. Gauteng is gone if that's the number in 2024, or even anything close to it.
Add to that, that the ANC is not the majority party in any single municipality in Gauteng.
Exactly.
They've obviously mid-vol they've never had,
exactly.
But in the other 8 municipalities in Gauteng, they might be the leading party, but they are nowhere. They're the 50% plus party.
And we started this discussion with saying there's a national swing, right? A national wave.
Yeah.
The national wave was -8 ANC. The Gauteng municipalities were all at the top of the list. They were the easiest to topple. So if you go -8 swing, those are all under, and the ANC is underwater now in all of them. And so that's why I also think Gauteng in 2024 is, I mean, from this position, extremely difficult for the ANC to get anywhere close to 50. And yeah, you're right, they're under 50 in all of those municipalities.
It's going to be a long couple of years for the ANC. Dawie, thank you very much for a fantastic chat.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed it.
It's great, thanks.
Did you enjoy it as well?
Yeah. Especially the singing at the beginning, that was nice.
I don't have a closing song, unfortunately, but we'll find something. Thank you very much for joining us for the early edition of Ballot Box. I'm sure there will be more editions of Ballot Box today, and we'll bring you all the results and the analysis as it happens right here on News24. Have a great day.